Hello, everyone, and welcome back to History of Cats 2 Creatures from Hell. And today's episode, we're going to be exploring more of how the cats have entered European culture, and I'm assuming the superstition, occultist, and witchery aspects of cats. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you enjoyed this reaction, let me know down below and let me know what I could be doing different and what you would suggest I react to. And also, don't forget to support the original creator if you haven't already. All right, let's get into it.
It is 16th century France, and a mother leans closer to the fire, telling her children a tale.
Okay.
Listen to me close, children. Cats are the spawn of Satan, the flames illuminating her grave expression. When you walk at night, do not let a cat cross your path, for whether it be black or white, it is surely a witch on an errand of the evil one. No doubt Satan himself or his imps will follow close behind. For even the high theologians, the learned doctors and lawyers have written that witches turn into, or appear to transform into, depending on the text, the lithe and furtive form of cats in order to work their wickedness. So if one were to cross you and you struck it with a foot or a club, surely some woman in the village shall have a bruised rib or a broken arm the next morn. And be wary of them, especially at Mardi Gras, where these demonic, secretive creatures spirit away into the night, gathering in high moonlit places to join their master Satan, who in the form of an enormous tomcat leads an unholy Sabbath where they dance on two legs, tear at each other with claws, sing in high mewling
What am I listening to right now? Is this real? Is this what people actually believe?
voices, and copulate in massive orgies.
That last part was crazy.
Speaking of parties, we wanted to let you know that our furry friends are about to launch their Kickstarter for
Wait, that's actually a cool shirt. I like that.
Humblewood Beyond the Canopy, a D&D 5e compatible campaign setting where you play as anthropomorphic birds, rodents, and of course cats, aka My Dreams Made Real. When the Romans adopted the domestic cat from the Egyptians and spread them into Europe, they came pre-packaged with a mythical reputation. For after the cat-headed goddess Bastet was folded into worship of Isis, goddess of magic among other things, an association formed between cats and the magical. Though the difference now was, while in Egypt this association made cats objects of reverence, respect, and even worship, in Europe it was the exact opposite. Actually,
Really?
mentioning that is a good reminder for me to tell all of you extra historians out there that today we're going to be discussing some pretty gnarly cruelty towards our feline friends.
Uh-oh.
So instead of depicting it outright, Zoe here has prepared these handy cardboard props and ragdolls to use in the more gruesome moments of our tale. Still, if this kind of thing makes your tummy go rumbly in the bad sort of way, viewer discretion is advised.
Like he said, viewer discretion is advised because I've got a really bad feeling about this episode.
The overall European negativity towards cats might have been due to the pre-existing feelings about cats and what they were used for. Because while cats were kept in households, especially by farmers, in order to control the rodent population, they were also used in a variety of products at the time. In Anglo-Saxon England, cat
What?
skin was worn by lower-class people for clothing, much like
What?
sheepskin or leather. And cat guts formed the basis of many musical string instruments, most famously, violins.
Uh,
You're telling me, bud, when you want food, you're already a whole orchestra. I think you're safe. So while dogs were solidly companion and work animals, cats were sort of in a weird middle space between companions, vermin, and farm animals like pigs who could be harvested for parts. And many cat behaviors that we look at positively today, heck, that the Egyptians thought were positive, Europeans of the time spun negatively. For instance, feline intelligence was interpreted as low cunning, their quiet and independence seen as suspicious and secretive, and as we mentioned in the opening of this episode, the fact that female cats in heat will mate with multiple partners echoed the orgies that witches were accused of conducting during their sabbats. Even cats' ability
Oh,
to
great.
communicate so effectively with humans could be cast negatively, because that could mean that they weren't really cats at all, but humans
oh no! They're actually humans because they're intelligent! Okay.
pretending to be cats. I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from. Zoe, you're like practically a person. But where these associations could go got pretty horrifying. As we mentioned at the start, cats, especially those prowling at night, were believed to be evil animals in league with the devil. It was said that witches would turn into cats in order to do their work, and many werewolf-like stories exist of women showing injuries they'd supposedly received the night before when transformed into a feline. And this wasn't just folk belief either. Several times in the 15th century, respected academics in Italy, from doctors to lawyers to a theologian, published books not only claiming that witches turned into cats, but some of the metaphysical processes of doing so. One, more level-headed and scientific than the rest, argued that this was, of course, wrong. By the natural laws of Aristotle, they posited, one creature cannot become another. And since going against natural law would be, by definition, a miracle, and Satan cannot perform miracles, that meant that a woman could not turn into a cat. Nope. He argued the devil only used, illusion to make it seem like she turned into a cat. I mean, come on, we gotta be scientific here, everyone, okay? Keep that in mind. Cats were also believed to be familiars, or demonic servants, of witches, often with twee little names like Pyewacket or Holt. Also, the witch would supposedly feed them from a secret nipple on their bodies that might
a secret nipple
deceptively appear as a mole or freckle. Again, that's just science talking, I bet.
Yeah.
As a sad result of this, during French witch hunts when women were burned at the stake, their cats were often burned along with them. Cats were also maimed as a form of protection against evil by clipping their ears or cutting off tails. Some of these were used in folk medicine and magic in hopes of using these magical animals for good. It was said sucking on a severed tail could make you recover from injuries sustained during a fall, or eating fresh cat brains could turn you invisible. And in parts of Scandinavia, folk wisdom held that blankets made of cat skin could cure a variety of diseases. But it didn't stop there. Folk beliefs also held that burying a cat alive in a field kept it clear of weeds, and that putting a live cat in a house's walls would help prevent the structure from falling down. In fact, this was so common that construction crews in France know to look out for it when renovating old homes, though this wasn't limited to Europe either.
Really? Like, this is still happening to these days because of renovations? Oh my God.
Similar cat charms have been found in the walls in Pennsylvania Dutch country as part of the hex magic traditions. Cat massacres also became part of the French feast of John the Baptist, when the animals, along with other objects considered to bring luck, would be thrown into fires. In another French feast, cat chasers would set a cat alight or tie a flaming cloth to its tail and chase it through the streets. Yeah, Zoe, I'm pretty sure there is. Hold on, let me check. Oh, okay. A medieval Danish folk game was to put a cat in a barrel of ash and hoist it between two poles, then beat the barrel with clubs either on foot or horseback, hoping to break it. Then when the barrel broke, releasing the terrified cat, they chased it away to symbolize chasing away the evil? Well, if it makes you feel any better, bud, they haven't used a real cat since the 1880s. Now when they play the game in modern Denmark, they just paint a cat on the barrel and fill it with candy. No, that doesn't make me feel better either. But I guess what we're trying to get at here is that cats were seen very negatively in Europe and heavily associated with witches and evil.
Of course.
In fact, the stereotype of the crazy cat lady even dates back to this time, since often the people who kept multiple cats were women who lived alone on the edge of towns, and the exact same kind of folks that got accused of being witches. Though at the same time, cats also, in some places, were associated as well with sex. For instance, in France, a man who kept a cat, or treated cats kindly, was said to be sure to attract a beautiful wife and be an attentive husband.
Well, I mean...
All right, I like that one. Also, petting a cat right before courting supposedly brought success with women. There was also a respect for the resilience of cats, leading to the folk rumor that cats had 9 lives, a belief that Shakespeare made the theme of his character Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet, who is called the King of Cats. Though that probably isn't a compliment, as Shakespeare seemed to have disliked the animal. He mentions cats 44 times across his work, all of them either neutral or negative. However, many of these also contain close observations of cat behavior, of them tentatively lapping milk or skulking in a hedge, meaning that even if Shakespeare wasn't a cat fancier himself, they were definitely present around him. This is perhaps not surprising, since despite all the abuse they suffered, cats were still everywhere, especially around the printing industry. Yeah, apparently printers had a particular love for them, and French print shops were infamous for having crowds of cats hanging around. This fact
Why?
comes to us through an odd event, the French 1730 Cat Massacre.
Oh.
I know, Zoe, I'm sorry, I promise this is the last one, but it does illustrate a really interesting point. Okay, at a print shop in Paris, the rich owner and his wife, who largely managed the shop, had attracted a huge group of cats who were always disturbing the people who, actually did work there. So those workers divined a plan to get rid of the felines once and for all.
I can see
Night
where this
after
is going.
night, the workshop apprentices climbed onto the roof and made cat noises to keep the bosses awake. Then, when the sleep-deprived print shop owner finally had enough, he ordered the workers to get rid of the cats. The apprentices, venting their hatred of the cats by making a big spectacle, then rounded up the felines in a courtyard, held a mock trial with a judge, lawyer, and bailiff, and then executed them. This included the mistress's favorite gray cat they'd been specifically told to spare. Just flippin' jerks. Now, inane cruelty aside, this tells us two important things. First, that in most of Europe, cats were considered little better than the rats they hunted, unworthy of pity, because the account we actually have of this occurrence treats the whole thing as a, really funny joke. And second, and more importantly, it suggests that with the end of the witchcraft trials, cats were already starting to gradually transition into household pets rather than a nuisance. At least in wealthier, more educated households, not tied with printing shops. Oh, 100% Zoe. Yeah, you can strike all that violent cardboard scenery because there are other places in the world where cats were still celebrated rather than persecuted, and I really want to get to those now. Thanks for going through the hard stuff with me, bud. I really appreciate it.
Are we
in
done?
the Muslim world, the folk traditions ran the completely opposite direction. Islamic culture picked up a bit of the...
Okay. Hard part's over watching that. Honestly, I was kind of feeling pretty sick watching all that other stuff. I do not tolerate kindly to cat violence.
Egyptian thinking, revering cats as clean animals who washed themselves, who were helpful in controlling vermin, and who were good companions. One Islamic tale claimed that Muhammad had loved cats and declared no one should ever hurt one.
Really?
Once he was said to have cut the sleeve off of his robes just because his cat had fallen asleep on it and he didn't wish to disturb it when rising. Now, of course, there's no textual...
To be fair, once a cat sleeps on you, you cannot move for hours, or all hell will break loose.
Evidence of this in the Quran or any other early Islamic documents, but it did become part of a thriving religious folklore. A saying developed that if you kill a cat, you have to build a mosque in recompense. And even today, in cities like Istanbul, cats are welcomed off the street into public buildings like museums and mosques. When it gets cold, it's not unusual for cats to cry at the front door of apartment buildings and be let inside the stairwells for the night to keep warm. Also, cats were regarded as special and almost magical in Asia, where they were traded among the upper classes as extravagant gifts. Emperor Uda received one as a diplomatic gift from China in 889 CE, keeping a diary where he gushed about his new kitten in a way familiar to any cat owner. He wrote in loving terms of how his cat curled up in a perfect circle, how it fought wearing a bow, or how it had fur like dark black ink. I am convinced, he wrote, that it is superior to all other cats, a feeling I can very much relate to. Having said all that, however, due to their magical vibes, cats in Japan and China did retain a bit of their sinister reputation. Cats that lived 25 years were said to have their tail split in two and become a sort of immortal demon with necromantic powers.
Whoa!
In fact, we have a Pokemon based on that, so you know it's legit. And in medieval China, belief in the Maogui demon cat was so widespread that it popped up in Sui Dynasty records. A Maogui was a spirit called upon by a female witch that would sicken their target, stealing their vitality and eventually killing them, while also magically transferring the target's wealth to the witch. And this belief even entered into Chinese historical records. In the 17th century, the wife of Emperor Wen fell deeply ill, with the culprit eventually being revealed as a female attendant of her relative who had called the Maogui on her. And yes, Zoe, I see you raising your paw. This is how the creature in Gremlins got its name of Mogwai. But actually, seeing you like that right there reminds me to mention Japan's Maneki Neko, or beckoning cat, which supposedly stems from a 17th century event during the Edo period when a samurai and his retinue were passing a temple and saw something strange. A cat was sitting up on its haunches, gesturing to them with the traditional Japanese motion for come. Intrigued, they entered the temple, right before a torrential downpour began, heralding a storm that might have killed the party had they continued on the road. He then became part of the temple and spread the word of the welcoming cat. There are many versions of this story, but whatever the origin, by the 18th century,
that's a really
ceramic
cool piece of
figures of a
history.
white beckoning cat were popular objects in Japan. So popular, in fact, they also caught on in China and Chinatowns around the globe. The cat became generally associated with luck and success in business, and then due to its prominence at restaurant entrances, have become a widely recognized symbol of Japanese culture. You and me both, bud. And you know, better days were still ahead for the cat species. And I don't just mean you hanging out in your super comfy cat tree. So, extra historians, please join us next time as we talk about the first breeds of cats emerging, how Victorians tried to hold a hilariously disastrous cat show, and talk about the artist that literally went mad for cats. Which is a topic that I and the folks over at Hit Point Press know a little something about, because they've added our favorite...
Well, it seems like that's the end of the episode there. Hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. If you did, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and follow. I'm thinking about Twitch. But make sure to check out Extra History. I know I said it in the last video, but they do amazing work. And honestly, I'm a big fan of their channel. So, alright. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.